What is up? What is up? How's everybody doing this evening? Um, People are just going to be mind blown that I'm on here this early. It actually feels pretty good. I'd like to try to do this more often, to be honest with you. So, as the title kind of suggests, we're going to kind of look into who and why um, what happened to Charlie Kirk happened to Charlie Kirk. Obviously, this isn't official, but this is 100% my belief. I think it's the only thing that makes sense. Um, and not a lot of people. Yes, there's plenty out there that are, but not a lot of people want to talk about our greatest ally like this. A lot of people don't want to consider that it could be our greatest ally. So, but we're going to look at it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who it is. If that is in fact what happened, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it did, but if that's what happened, then it doesn't matter. Maybe they shouldn't be an ally. Maybe we should bump them down the list a little bit at least. So anyway, we're going to look at some of that. I don't know how many people out there have actually seen, and this is from a while back. I can't remember exactly when it was, but Charlie Kirk hosted Dave Smith and oh, I want to forget his name all the time. Josh Hammerhead. He hosted a debate at one of the Turning Point, events, and it was absolutely amazing. I mean, that was one of the worst ass whippings I've ever seen, and Josh Hammer and a lot of the normal voices, your Mark Levin's and your all that crowd, of course, they cried and cried and cried about it. Everybody, including Charlie, was an anti-Semite. But at the end of the day, it was a war of words. They were throwing their it was a contest to see who had the best facts or the most facts. And in that situation there, Dave Smith just, I mean, won that debate easily, embarrassed Josh Hammer. So all that being said, I'm going to pull that up. I want to watch at least some of it just to kind of refresh our memory. Because I want to try to just maybe demonstrate the progression. Obviously, we all know that he's always considered himself an evangelical Christian, and he's always been extremely pro Philadelphia. I mean, like to the point where it just make me turn it off. But regardless, no matter what some of these Josh Hammers and Mark Levin's and Randy Fines, they're at least the last 6 months to a year, there was a definite progression and a definite change. And anybody that says that there wasn't is just not being honest. But yes, he started looking at the world differently. I would say, like a lot of people, one big thing would be what started happening in Gaza. I feel like he got a whole new outlook when that happened. And things started happening that he just literally did not think could or would happen. So, yeah, totally changed his outlook on that whole deal. All right, I'm gonna not keep rambling. I'm gonna get this going. Let's watch this. This is impressive. Anybody wants to know how to debate this right here? This will be a master class. I'll probably speed it up a little bit. Josh Hammer, when he talks, he's like anyway, so I'm afraid it's going to just be too fast. But we'll try running it up a little bit so we can make sure we have time to get through all of it. I don't want to have to cut it short. It's really good. So yeah, I'm going to try speeding it up so we can make sure and watch the whole thing.
Ago today, I bet you remember exactly where you were. A year ago today, Donald Trump was in Butler, Pennsylvania. A year ago today, our republic was probably saved by just a couple of centimeters. A year ago today, by the grace of God and a turn of the head tilt, a bullet whizzed by Donald Trump's face and barely scraped his ear. And as we're closing out this conference, I think we just need to just remember how far our nation has come in the span of 1 year, of how much has changed. And thanks to the goodness and glory of God, that Donald Trump turned his head at that very moment. I'll never forget where I was with my daughter. All of a sudden, I saw we were in some workout area, and all of a sudden on screen, Donald Trump shot. You all remember where you were when you first heard the news. And then what a sigh of relief when we saw him rise up and he said, fight, fight, fight. 1 year ago to this day. But the reason I want to start with this is that we also lost one of our own patriots that day, Corey Compatore. And we should just do a moment of silence for 10 seconds to remember Corey Compatore that lost his life a year ago today. Thank you. And I know that so many of you have been to MAGA rallies. He died a hero's death. He put his body in the way and saved his daughter's lives that they may live. For the men out there, that is the best of MAGA masculinity. And Corey, we remember you today here in Tampa, Florida. Our line here is going to be, as many of you guys know, I speak a lot about this on college campuses. I get so many questions about this topic on college campuses. Some of my best memories ever have been going to Israel, traveling to Israel, seeing where Jesus rose from the dead. Jesus walked on water, spoke in the Garden of Gethsemane, gave the sermon, Mount Beatitudes, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in Hebron. And some of my greatest experiences have been in the Holy Land and defending Israel. But as
No, I did not do that. Okay. Well, there it is. So, as I was saying, there's nothing in the world wrong with having a soft place in your heart for these sites. Especially if you're a Christian. I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting to go even see those sites or walk there, where Jesus walked. There's nothing wrong with that. And most anybody can fully understand that. I mean, especially with the Christians. But you just can't conflate, like you hear a lot, talk about the Jews, where you hear about Israel. Well, and people need to understand that the Jews have nothing to do with the state of Israel, like the secular government. Talking about the holy sites, whether the Rothschilds had, facilitated the creation of Israel in 1948 or not, the places where Jesus walked and, did all these great things, they would still be there. So at the end of the day, none of that stuff has anything to do with the secular government of Israel. And I feel like, and probably intentionally, but that always gets conflated, and they try to just like merge those into where it's just the same thing, and it's absolutely not. So I have no issue whatsoever with him talking about going to Israel and it being nice and him having a good time going to see those places where Jesus was.
you know, this is a very hot topic increasingly a hot topic in conservative circles. And I thought, hey, let's lean into that disagreement. Let's lean into that debate. Let's have two people that don't agree on this topic that are some of the best defenders of the position when it comes to Israel, when it comes to the 12-day war, when it comes to be supporting or sending aid to Israel.
Anybody that doesn't know, this is not the first. This is not the first Dave Smith Josh Hammer debate, and I'm almost positive. I guess I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive. I don't think I am wrong. I'm almost positive that Charlie Kirk also hosted that debate, the first one. I do remember for sure that just like in this one, Dave Smith absolutely, spanked his ass in that debate also. So anyway, this is debate number 2 between those, and hosted by Charlie Kirk. So it's interesting that debate is happening, that he put that on, but I don't think he did it because he had any question either way. And I think he was trying to subtly get some more of this information out there to these kids because, he didn't want to just come out and start preaching, the opposite. But, they'd already had this debate. He knew how it was going to go. And so, he already knew the message that was going to was going to go across whenever before he ever even had him out there on the stage.
We want to just all of a sudden say, oh, you're not allowed to say that. No, we want to foster an environment where we get to the truth. We want to find the best ideas and have the best ideas win. And so we are thrilled to have two men, and they know what they're talking about. I'm going to be moderating this. We're going to make this. So give it up for Josh Hammer and Dave Smith, everybody.
Also, for anybody else that is not aware, Dave Smith is Jewish. So, and of course, Josh Hammer he's like super Jewish. He's a super Jew. Yeah. So two Jewish folks having a friendly debate, and it's funny how much of a difference in outlook there is between those two.
So Josh and Dave, welcome to Turning Point USA. Welcome to Tampa. And give it up for both these men again. So we have a clock here. We can blow through that if this is going well and respectful and spirited. First, Josh Hammer is with Josh Hammer Show. Josh is a very passionate and eloquent defender of Israel, and also is a great friend and someone that we talk about a lot of other issues as well. So Josh, welcome. Great to have you.
Great to be here, Charlie.
Also, Dave Smith. Dave is comedian. A lot of fans of yours here in the audience, Dave.
Does anybody listen to Josh Hammer? I think he just said that he had a podcast or show. Like, who in the hell can suffer through that?
Also a libertarian, and we're not going to talk much about that. But we were talking about how much we agreed backstage on certain things. And Dave means a lot. You're all flight to get here from halfway across the country. And so, Dave, you could plug your stuff as well, because I don't know the name of your show and stuff. But I want to start with this. I want to start with opening statements, if you will. There are 3 big things that I want to cover. And we just focus group with some of our students here earlier. The 3 big things we want to cover. We want to cover the 12-day war between Israel and Iran. What do we think of that? Good, bad? How did Trump handle it? Number 2, we want to talk about the appeared, the fake, or the real amount of Israeli influence in American politics, from AIPAC to how congressmen are involved, and kind of have our discussion debate. And then finally, it's one thing to be against stuff, everybody. You can always, I don't like this, I don't like that. I want both of these men to present what their solution is, their proposition of what they are proposing. So with that, though, Dave, I thought it would be helpful. This is your first Turning Point event. Some people aren't familiar with your work. Introduce yourself, make an introductory statement, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you very much, and thank you guys for having me. As Charlie mentioned, I took a flight here, so I'm going on no sleep. So if Josh wins, it doesn't count. But I'm a stand-up comedian, and I'm also a libertarian. I'm really a follower of the greatest congressman who's ever lived, who is Dr. Ron Paul, who is turning 90 years old. Happy birthday to him. As far as, look, I would say I think that American foreign policy for my entire life has been insane, and like criminally insane. We've launched war after war. We've talked about peace through strength the whole time, but all we've gotten is permanent militarism and forever wars against countries that pose no threat to us. And a huge part of the reason why we've embarked on this is because the neoconservatives hijacked our foreign policy, and they were in power after 9/11. And the neoconservatives, as everybody who's followed it knows, were joined at the hip with the Likud party. That's just a fact. They all admit it in their own words. And you can go back and you can read the Clean Break memo. You can read the companion piece, Coping with Crumbling States. This was written by David Wormser and Richard Pearl. And they laid out their plan. Now, their plan was that to help Israel, the clean break is a break from the peace process, a break from Oslo, which was designed to give the Palestinians.
And for anybody that's not aware, the Likud party is the political party that Netanyahu is a part of or represents.
Their own state. And these neoconservative geniuses decided that instead of the Israelis making peace with the Palestinians, they could just have the U.S. overthrow all of the surrounding governments that were giving Israel a hard time. And this is where four-star General Wesley Clark says that he saw the plans right after 9/11 to overthrow 7 countries in the next 5 years. And what was the last country on that list? It was Iran. Okay? This is a big part of what the whole conflict is about. Now, the neoconservative has kind of become like a pejorative for war hawks these days, and don't get me wrong, I support that. Keep calling them neocons. But the actual neoconservatives, the self-identified neoconservatives, aren't really in power anymore. But Benjamin Netanyahu is still in power in Israel, and the Likud party is still pushing for this. Now, I want very quickly, I'll try to not go too long here. Okay, they actually did focus group testing back in the 90s before the first Gulf War in Iraq. And you know, Americans weren't really moved by, we have to reinstall the king of Kuwait, but they were moved by the nuclear threat. Now, if you go read Coping with Crumbling States or the Clean Break memo, in the 90s when the neocons admitted they wanted to overthrow Saddam Hussein.
That and the lab-created anthrax that was made in a lab here in the United States. Fort Detrick, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong on that, but yeah, that anthrax did not come from Saddam Hussein.
They never said it was because he had nuclear weapons. They said he was a problem for Israel in the region. They only made up that lie after 9/11 because they knew that moms and dads on going to this war. And they talked about wanting to throw Iran. This thing never had nothing to do with nuclear threat. That's just the thing they use now as the excuse. So yes, there is tremendous influence by Israel in our government. That doesn't mean I'm subscribing to some crazy conspiracy or telling you to hate Jewish people. I'm Jewish. I'm Jewish. They've used it in a very negative way, and we should reject this insane foreign policy and embrace the foreign policy that Dr. Ron Paul advocated, which is the foreign policy of the founding fathers. Stay out of entangling alliances, stay out of unnecessary wars, be friends with the world, and trade with the world. That's the key to prosperity.
Thank you, Dave. Josh, opening statement, feel free to respond, and then we'll proceed as we go. So that was about 3.5, 4 minutes, so same amount of time.
All right, so it's really great to thank you, Charlie, for having me. Thank you, Turning Point, for having me back. It's really wonderful to be at this amazing conference. You know, Dave joked that he didn't sleep last night. Today's
And here we go. He's fixing to start his bullshit attack right now. He's a little fucking ankle biter is all he is.
actually also a fast day on the Jewish calendar. I'm not eating or even drinking water. So we're all on the same page here. We're all just totally screwed. So you can kind of get off the same starting place there. Look, there's a lot of substance to respond to. I'll just really briefly do that, and then we'll talk about what I actually want to talk about in my opening remarks. Dave mentioned this alleged coordination between the neoconservatives, which I presume he means Bush-era foreign policy, and the Likud party. I presume half of you probably don't even know what the Likud party is. The Israeli right, it's very instructive, and Dave always conveniently neglects to inform the audience of this, that the Bush administration going into Iraq's whole notion that Israel is talking America into foreign wars is total nonsense. Actually, in 2011, when the Obama administration toppled Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, it's actually well known that Libya actually sent secret diplomatic envoys to Israel, trying to tell them to then talk to the United States and France to talk NATO off of that attack there. So this whole narrative is totally backwards there. But I want to kind of dumb things down a little bit here. I see a lot of people wearing 47 hats. I voted for President Trump multiple times. I love our president. You guys love our president, right? You love President Trump? Okay. This is Turning Point freaking USA. Charlie, God bless you. You have built the largest MAGA.
Y'all hear that? This is
grassroots army.
Never mind.
in the country. Seriously, my friend, you deserve this. You all are card-carrying members of it. We here are part of that. The good news is that while no one should be afraid of debate, and this debate is a nice thing here, the MAGA movement is actually quite unified, believe it or not, all the talk to the contrary when it comes to these issues. An overwhelming majority of self-identified MAGA Republicans supports close U.S.-Israel relations. According to a CBS News poll, moreover, after the recent Operation Midnight Hammer B-2 bombers in Iran, 94% of self-identified MAGA Republicans supported President Trump's dropping those B-2 bombs on Fort Natanz and the other Iranian facilities there. This is a wildly popular policy there. What did Dave Smith say about this? He re-upped his now years-long crusade to call for Donald Trump's impeachment. Y'all probably don't know that about Dave Smith, do you? He's now called for Donald Trump to be impeached multiple times. But Dave, look, I mean, I don't like when people misquote me either. You probably don't like when people misquote you. So I actually have a little bit of a highlight reel here of Dave Smith's tweets over the years. Dave Smith, March 19th, 2024. Donald Trump is responsible for around 500,000 deaths in Yemen and between the weapons to Ukraine and the Abraham Accords Jerusalem embassy. He is at least partially responsible for the two worst humanitarian crises in the world. He's a war criminal who should spend his life in prison. He is calling Donald Trump a war criminal who should spend his life in prison. You should be livid at that. I am livid at that as a Trump supporter. Donald Trump, Dave Smith, June 16, 2025. Trump allegedly had full prior knowledge of Israel's attacks and gave it his blessing while pretending to be negotiating with the Iranians as a cover. If this is true, Trump is the most impotent bitch of a leader imaginable. He's calling our president, the greatest president in my lifetime, an impotent bitch. Are you kidding me? June 21st, 2025, Donald Trump has now launched an illegal war of aggression against Iran. The risk of an absolute catastrophe is very high and the benefits are non-existent. Dave Smith, June 21st. Dead wrong. This notion that World War III would start, not a single American casualty. We should be celebrating that. Donald Trump fulfilled multiple campaign promises. The escalator speech in 2015 at Trump Tower, he literally said, I'm not going to let Iran get a nuclear weapon. And guess what? He said, I oppose a neoconservative foreign policy. He did both of those things with Iran. He deprived the Iranian regime of nuclear weapon while not losing a single American sailor, soldier, Marine, while depriving them of nuclear weapons. And finally, Charlie, I'll end on this. Dave Smith, July 8, 2025. In the last month, Donald Trump has launched a war of aggression on behalf of a foreign government, exploded the that announced that he's continuing the Biden policy of arming Ukraine and cover up a giant child rape operation. So according to my interlocutor, Donald Trump is not just engaging in wars on behalf of a foreign government, he is also covering up the world's giant pedophilic child sex trafficking ring, allegedly, I presume, on behalf of a foreign government as well. So I'm disgusted, frankly, that this man is on stage, but I'll end it at that.
Okay, well.
Funny he mentioned that it would, he assumed that it was allegedly for a foreign government also. And if anybody's been paying any attention to the last drop of like 3 million files, a lot of people have been talking about it the last few weeks. In there, it is pretty plain that and clear that it was for a foreign country, and it damn sure wasn't Russia. So I think we all know who.
Got it. So you can see peace is hard. I'm trying to keep the peace. Now, Dave, I want to give you an opportunity, about 4 minutes to respond to that. But also, I do want to, now that we had the opening salvos and the
Josh Hammer is like a fucking chihuahua.
Tomahawk missiles launched, let's respond as you see fit. No, and then bring us to the 12-day war, because let's stay focused on that.
Yeah,
we can.
Well, the thing, Charlie,
but defend yourself.
Sure.
Obviously.
Well, the thing is, Charlie, as you may have noticed, and some of you may have seen some of my other debates. Every single time I come up here to debate issues, and they come up here to debate me and my character. It's all they have every single time, because they can't actually take on any of the arguments. And so the most pathetic, low-hanging fruit of you guys like Trump. This guy said bad things about Trump. Listen, guys. I'm a free American. I support him in this last election. Yes, he did just actively cover up a giant child rapist ring, and I'm going to criticize him for that, okay? And I'm sorry, after all these years of us right-wingers saying, protect the children, come on, that's bad for your soul if you don't. You speak up about that. It's horrible what he's doing. And, as far as the actual substance of what Josh said here, which there really wasn't much, but I already pointed this out the last time we debated, his topic about how Sharon was against the war in Iraq is total nonsense. Sharon's envoy initially opposed it. We found out that Bush was going to invite Saddam Hussein to be overthrown, but because he wanted regime change in Iran first. And then when the George W. Bush administration assured him that Iran would come next, they got on board with it and they started pumping out all types of propaganda about how Saddam Hussein's nuclear secret sites that didn't exist. And Benjamin Netanyahu, the longest serving prime minister in Israeli history, that year in 2002, came to Congress and testified under, a congressional testimony that anyone can go watch, and advocated not that the U.S. let Israel do it, but that the U.S. overthrow Saddam Hussein. I believe his words were, "I guarantee that peace will spread through the region." And he also advocated that we overthrow Muammar Gaddafi and the mullahs in Iran. So that's just, you're just wrong about it. That's not true. And yes, have I been critical of Donald Trump when I think he gets things wrong? Yeah. I mean, I think that's what we should do. This is America. You criticize the government when they get things wrong. And so I don't even know what else.
Josh, wait 1 sec, Josh. I got to keep the peace here. Dave, about a minute-ish.
Okay.
No, I'm taking the right time. I'm just...
Look, as far as
take
the...
about a minute and a half and try to do the 12-day war thing.
Yeah, sure. As far as the 12-day war goes, I mean, look, I'll be honest. It might be the greatest thing he's ever done in his life, that at the end of the 12-day war, he after the Iranian response was as weak as it was, and they gave us advanced warning, so there were no American casualties, he started pushing for a ceasefire. And that was great that he did that. But point is that the war never needed to be launched to begin with. Iran did not have nuclear weapons. Iran, according to all of the intelligence, including our Director of National Intelligence, until a day after Israel bombed them, and she changed her mind, go read the annual threat assessment from earlier this year. Iran had not made the political decision to acquire a nuclear weapon, and they were in negotiations with Donald Trump at the time to bring their enrichment down. There was just no need other than the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu wants that regime overthrown.
Josh, feel free to respond. Thank you.
I'd be curious if Dave Smith also believes in the tooth fairy and pink unicorns. I mean, what lie does Dave Smith not believe, frankly? Look, the recent 12-day war is literally the encapsulation of the Trump doctrine of foreign policy. Donald Trump ran against neoconservatism. He is not a neoconservative. That's good, because neoconservatism is actually really, really bad. I actually have a whole chapter in my book, Israel and Civilization, talking about how bad neoconservatism is. It's chapter 7. If you haven't read, you should go ahead and pick up a copy. So it's really good that Donald Trump opposes moralistic, nation-building
I don't know about that. I don't think I'll be buying a copy. I don't know that I could sit through it.
Guess what Donald Trump is also not, and never has been since day one? He's never been a hardcore isolationist. He is a foreign policy nationalist and realist. We would say that he is a Jacksonian. He is in the mold of Andrew Jackson, one of his favorite presidents of all time, because he believes in generally following the very wise advice of George Washington in his farewell address, that you should beware of foreign entanglements. But when you are attacked, you are going to punch back 3 times as hard. How many times has Trump said that in a debate there? When he's punched, he's going to punch back really, really, really hard.
When did we get attacked by Iran? I mean, I'm sorry. I voted for the man 3 times, and I've always, for the most part, supported him, not blindly. But to me, that is just a ridiculous point to try to make, that, well, when you get attacked, you punch back, because they didn't attack anybody.
What happened in the 12-day war was you had a close ally, Israel, that through their wonderful control of the skies, and they're taking out the missile launchers and the IRGC command there, essentially paved a very clean runway through that, and they're neutralizing Hezbollah last year in 2024, that then allowed the United States to come in with the B-2 bombers and a death blow. It was a perfect alley-oop. For you basketball fans, it was kind of like Kobe Bryant tossing it to Shaquille O'Neal back in the way. It was a perfect tag team operation to neutralize and set back by many years the threat of a regime that, whether or not we care to admit, has actually been at war with the United States at least since the 1983 Beirut, Lebanon, Hezbollah barracks bombings that slaughtered 240.
And all 100% because of our support of Philadelphia. I mean, they keep attacking all their neighbors. They keep the Middle East just stirred up and, in conflict all the time. And they keep dragging us in. Every time they get something started, they need us to come in behind them and finish up the job. And yeah, that's exactly why we're big Satan and they're little Satan. The reason they hate us is not our freedoms. It's our support of that little bitty nation the size of New Jersey.
Marines, arguably since the 1979 hostage crisis as well. Again, Donald Trump fulfilled multiple campaign promises. He set back the nuclear program. Not a single American soldier, sailor, or Marine died. It was a...
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to insert myself, because I don't want us to talk past each other, because these conversations have a tendency to do that. So I'm going to ask both of you a critical question that both of you guys already launched. Josh, to you first. Dave's contention, and Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the nuclear program was not a threat. Correct? That it was a intel push. Would you even say that, I'm strong-manning your argument, steel-manning it. Josh, what do you have to say to that, to the veracity of the claim that there was an imminent threat of Iran getting a nuclear bomb? That is a core point of Dave's argument. Then Dave, I'm going to throw back an equally difficult question for you. Josh.
Okay, so I profess agnosticism as to the imminent nature, Charlie, because I have not seen the reports. Neither have you, neither has Dave. Literally, no one in this room has actually seen the report. So I do not know literally what the exactly imminent nature of the threat was. It would be impossible for me to say. I'm not going to bullshit you and pretend like I know because I simply don't know. What I can say is the following. Iran has transparently and obviously been trying to acquire a nuclear weapon for 2.5, 3 decades. We know this for approximately 1 to 2 million different reasons. Among them that we can point to is that the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Administration, which is essentially the nuclear watchdog for the United Nations, they have been sounding the alarm about this, and they have said very loudly and clearly that Iran has blocked their inspectors from going to inspect their enriched uranium, and that they have concluded over recent years, especially including recent months, that Iran is enriching uranium at a much quicker rate and to a much higher percentage and rate of enrichment than any civilian program would ever justify. By the way, the notion that Iran even needs a civilian program in the I think is kind of bonkers, is one of the most petroleum, oil, and gas-rich countries in the world. So that's kind of a bit of a red herring in and of itself. But we know from a million different international organizations that they have been doing this. And Charlie, more to the point, again, you know, Dave likes to say, oh, they just chant death to America, which they do. They literally chant it every single day in their Potemkin parliament. But they actually do act on it. They killed hundreds and hundreds of American soldiers on the roadside of Fallujah, Al-Anbar province during Iraq with Qasem Soleimani-supplied IEDs. They have killed Americans going back to the 241 Marines in Beirut, Lebanon. By the way, the Hezbollah jihadists who organized that operation to slaughter those Marines in Beirut, Lebanon in 1983 was a man by the name of Fuad Shakur. The U.S. State Department had a $5 million bounty on his head following the 1983 slaughter of the Marines there in Beirut. He went alive for 41 years. You know who killed him last year? The IDF. Israel took out this guy that the State Department had a $5 million bounty on for 41 years for killing 241 of our boys back in 1983 in Beirut.
So I'm going to now ask, I'm going to a really tough follow-up for you. You do not want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Bad. Would you, if it ever took, if it required U.S. troops on the ground, would that be worth Iran not getting a nuclear weapon?
Charlie, with respect, I reject the premise. I simply do not think it does, actually.
I know, it's a hypothetical, but it's worth thinking about. Okay. Dave, I got to ask you a tough question now. Okay?
Yeah, I want to respond to some of this stuff, because all of that's wrong.
You will. Hold on. I don't want us to talk past each other, else we're going to spend all this time on prime ministers in 2002 that the audience doesn't know about.
No, but if he's making claims of...
Shout out Charlie Kirk. Wasn't he just the greatest? I mean, like, I've seen so many debates that turned into a shit show really quick, and he's got away with people, and especially when it comes to debating. Yeah, if it wasn't for him sitting there, this would be a shit show right now.
About like something that's just not true.
I want you to get to, I want to just ask a very simple question. From your perspective, because I just asked the tough one to Josh, are you okay, or do you think we should do anything to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb?
Anything, sure. Yeah, there's lots of things I think we should do.
Is military action ever justified?
Well, again, yes, there are times when military action is justified, but if you're saying what we could do to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, what we were doing, Donald Trump was in negotiations with them, and I think he should have continued those. And the truth is that the big problem with the JCPOA that Obama got us into was that there were sunset provisions. They opened up a whole new inspections regime. It is not true that the IAEA is saying that Iran was about to get a nuclear weapon. Anybody you want, it's published online. You can go read the conclusion of their last report where they explicitly said Iran does not have nuclear weapons and is not trying to develop them. They are enriching at 60%, and they were in negotiations to maybe bring that down. But you know, when you bring up the fact of the Marines getting killed in 1983, it's actually an interesting. Ronald Reagan, who was president at the time, he wrote about this in his memoir. Now, if you know what Ronald Reagan did, was he pulled out after that. He turned tail and run. And he said in his memoir, he said, I underestimated the irrationality of Middle Eastern politics, and we never should have gotten involved in that. Now, if you want to say that Iran backed them, okay, a couple years after that, Charlie, there was a scandal in the Reagan administration. It was the something Contra, Iran-Contra. That's right. Ronald Reagan was selling weapons to the Iranians a couple years after this happened. So to come back now 40 plus years later and use that as the excuse why we got to go to war with Iran, I mean, just think about how crazy this is. And the stuff he said about the roadside bombs in Iraq is just not true. It's been debunked. It's more war propaganda that's been debunked. I highly recommend anyone can read the book Enough
Have you
Already.
Spoken to a
Josh,
I highly recommend people read the book Enough Already. It is the best book that's been written about the terror wars by Scott Horton. He has all the footnotes in there. You can go through it yourself. It's completely debunked. Those roadside bombs were built by Shiites in Iraq. Now, some of them did have relationships with Iran, but the majority of Iraq is Shiite. So yes, we invaded the next door country and we got into some fights with the Shiite groups there. But to say that's a reason why we now have to invade Iran or we have to bomb them or something, it just doesn't make any sense.
One key point is that, back in the day, Iraq and Saddam, they kind of kept Iran at bay. They fought for years and years and years. And they kind of kept Iran from being just a absolute superpower in the Middle East. But what did we do? We went in there. We took out Saddam Hussein, crashed the place, bombed it all to shit, killed a bunch of Iraqis, and all of a sudden there was a power vacuum, and there wasn't any more competition for that top spot, and so Iran became the superpower in the Middle East.
Or two really quick, Chris, follow-ups.
That's a very simplified version of what happened, but.
And then we'll do this. Both sides need to get under good cross-examination. Do you think it would be bad if Iran got a nuclear bomb?
Yes, I think it's bad. I think it's bad.
And I think we can all agree on that. That is a moral agreement.
I don't think anybody should be allowed to have nuclear weapons secretly.
Right. And so.
How about that?
We know who he's talking about there. Philadelphia.
I will ask Josh about that, because that's a not so subtle dig at Israel.
Wait, hold on, are you suggesting that Israel has nuclear weapons?
I don't know, actually, it probably did.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know the intelligence. I'm not the head of DNI, but I mean, they probably do. But let me ask you, Dave. Now, another question. What is your now, let's just say, criticism? No U.S. troops were killed. It required no U.S. troops on the ground. There was no war. It lasted 12 days. Fordo was pretty eliminated, and even the Iranians say it. So looking at it now, 12 days later, what is your problem with what seems to be a masterclass in 12 days, in, out, no problem, no U.S. troops, and we've kind of moved on? What would your problem with that be?
You know, I think, and I do think there's something really sick and poisoning about.
And most of that he just named off there is, really, you got to credit Charlie Kirk for the fact that it went that way. Yeah, if it hadn't have been for Charlie Kirk, things may have went way different. But yeah, Charlie Kirk was in the White House there leading up to that whole thing. I mean, kicking and screaming, saying, don't do this. And if we just have to do something, very, very limited operation. And thank God that's what happened, and that's the way it went. The scary thing is as much say as he had, and as much of the president's ear as he had, as influential as he was, he's no longer there. So, yeah, it's kind of scary. We don't have that voice sticking up for us now.
About this is that our country has become so addicted to war that if we launch a war and you go, well, it wasn't a complete catastrophe. I mean, 1 million people didn't die in this one, like in Iraq, or hundreds of thousands die in this one, like in Afghanistan or Libya or Syria. It's like, okay, look, people died in this war, okay? There were both Iranian civilians and Israeli civilians who died in this war. It was a terrible thing for them and their families. This was a catastrophe. And my point is that the war never needed to be launched to begin with. But there's no reason why we even have to be enemies with Iran. They oppose no, this is a third world country in the Middle East that does not have nuclear weapons, does not have intercontinental ballistic missiles, does not have an air force capable of hitting us with anything. This is Israel's problem. We don't need to be involved in this. Sorry, we got our own issues here. And again, I'll give Donald Trump
dragging us in.
That, okay, it didn't turn into a catastrophe. He took the off-ramp when he had the chance. But look, a lot of that was out of Donald Trump's control. The risk of this war, like a lot of people love to, like Josh likes to read my tweets when I was saying this could turn into a catastrophe.
Because you were dead wrong, you look stupid.
Oh. Josh.
Okay, Josh said,
Chihuahua, ankle biter. Just yip.
Don't say.
No.
Let's de-escalate the stupid stuff.
No, actually, what Josh is saying is the lowest IQ argument that anyone can make. I was warning that there's a risk of a catastrophe, and he's saying you're stupid because there wasn't a catastrophe. This is on the level of playing Russian roulette, and if the bullet doesn't go off, you go, see, dummy, you were warning that could go bad. That doesn't prove anything. Listen, for all you guys, if you're talking about how big and bad the Iranians are and what a scary threat they are, what if they hadn't given us advance notice? What if Iran was actually as suicidal as people like Josh pretend they are? And what if their response had killed a few hundred Americans in the region, which by all military assessments, they are capable of doing? What would Donald Trump have had to do then, Charlie? What would he
I'm the moderator.
No. Okay, sorry.
Like, come on, Dave.
It was a rhetorical question.
Both sides are getting tough questions here.
The point is, Donald Trump would have had to respond even harder.
And then would have
let's give Josh a chance to respond.
Yes,
but first,
it didn't happen. It's a counterfactual. You hadn't have had breakfast this morning.
When people talk over each other, they don't like listening to that. So that's why I'm here. Josh, I want you to respond to that. But to Dave's point, Do you think Israel has a secret nuclear program, and is that a problem?
Yeah, I think it's not particularly disputed that Israel has a nuclear program. We know exactly where it is based. This is not a particularly hidden thing there. I mean, it's so well known, in fact, Charlie, that I don't know exactly why it's officially a secret. Unofficially, it's not much of a secret. I'm non-Israeli. I have no idea why the exact policy is the way it is. I don't particularly have a program with it. As I said, it's one of the world's worst kept secrets. It kind of just is what it is. But more generally speaking, I don't understand why we're going so far down this rabbit hole of would have, could have, should have. The people, look, let's
Yes, but with it being secret means they do not, there's no nuclear, I can't even say it. I can't say it. Sorry. But there's no IAE. Oh my God, I can't talk tonight. I don't know how words work. Anyway, no kind of oversight, no kind of inspections, with them being secret and off the books. Means they got plausible deniability no matter what, and nobody's going to be looking over their shoulder to make sure they're playing by the rules. The rules don't apply to them.
something very simple here. The people who said that Donald Trump's involvement in the 37-hour operation of the B-2 bombers flying from Missouri to Iran and back with not a single shot fired at our boys. By the way, as I said, that was partially due to the fact that the IDF had so neutral. The fact that they accomplished that so amazingly there, we should have seen that coming, because it was actually pretty easily foreseeable. And the people who did not see that coming are the people who have lost credibility to comment, frankly, on these affairs. People who warned about thousands and thousands and thousands of dead American lives, who said that China and Russia would swoop in and that this would be World War III. Well, you know what? God bless you all, because you apparently survived World War III. It was the shortest World War III of all of our lifetimes.
I didn't say any of that, so what do you...
Dave, I restrained Josh. Josh, keep going.
Again, this is the Donald Trump foreign policy doctrine in action. It is quick surgical strikes. Roger Stone was talking about earlier. It's exactly right. He is not a neocon. Neoconservatism, bad. Isolationism, also naive and stupid. Donald Trump agrees with both those things. The nationalist, realist, MAGA, America First approach to foreign policy is to have strong nationalist allies that are generally capable of securing and patrolling their own regions in a way that redounds not merely to the allies' national interests, but also to the American national interest. That is exactly what Israel has been doing for 40, 50 years, as they have taken out Islamists and Sharia supremacist thugs in Gaza, in Yemen, Hezbollah. I mentioned Fuad Shakur, the Hezbollah jihadi who killed 241 Marines in Beirut, Lebanon, 1983. There's a million examples there. That is the definition of an America First ally, and what just happened in the 12-day war is an encapsulation of the America First Trump doctrine, that in this case, this tag team between the U.S. and Israel against the mutual threat of Iran in action.
Okay, so I want to now move, because it's important, but it's connected. So I think we have on full display a difference of opinion on the 12-day war. Now let's go to the next one. It's inferred in both of these points, but you only get to answer it as yes or no one at a time. Is Israel an ally of the United States?
Yes, of course.
No.
Okay, so now we have...
Absolutely not. In any sense of the word, they are not, officially and unofficially. Like, there are absolutely no treaties. There are no agreements whatsoever. Back right after 9/11, you know, we were over there in Afghanistan. We're over there in Iraq, and I mean, and a lot of this was Benjamin Netanyahu directly standing there in Congress, talking about how Saddam Hussein has these weapons of mass destruction. You know, he will do this, he will do that. He's almost got a nuclear bomb. We've got to take them out. We've got to take them out. Like, he's on camera, and you can you can search it and find him saying that. Hours worth of compilations of him saying that. So we were over there. I mean, in no small part, Benjamin Netanyahu. But yet, when we attacked, or, you know, when we invaded Iraq, and then ended up in Afghanistan, we had Canadian troops, we had British troops, we had Australian troops, we had all these different troops. Can anyone guess what the one country's military was not represented in that whole war? It would be our greatest ally. So in what sense of the word are we allies if, when we're attacked and we have to go in to protect ourselves, you know, where were they at? So in what sense of the word are they an ally if they don't have our backs? But guess what? Every time they pop something off somewhere, Guess who is feeding them all the missiles for their defense system? Guess who is for free out there with our Navy, with our destroyers, and with our aircraft? We're shooting down missiles because they went and picked a fight, and now somebody's shooting at them. So, in what sense of the word are they an ally? I mean, there is none. I mean, they're not, like I said, there are no agreements whatsoever. There's no mutual defense agreement there, nothing. So to say that they're an ally is absurd.
Disagreement. We're going to now figure that out. And then I want to indicate it in that is Israel influencing American politics? So I'm going to start with Josh, and then we'll go back to Dave. You say Israel is an ally. Spend a minute on that, and then address how some people have concerns that Israel is influencing the U.S. government, and then I'll allow Dave to have some time. Josh.
All right,
I'll tell you what. Let's try to come back to this. This thing is great. I could sit here and watch the rest of it, no problem. But I do want to bring up some of the other clips that I had, because you could definitely see a transaction or a transition. You could definitely tell that that Charlie Kirk was changing his stances. You could definitely tell that his views were different than what they were. Okay, let's see here. Which one do I want to do first? Let's do this one.
Of you being able to win an election because the more chaotic it was.
This is PBD, by the way. Again, don't know if anybody here has seen this, but very, very interesting conversation. I think this is one of the first interviews or conversations I heard with Charlie that he really, put into words his some of the questions that he had and the fact that things were not adding up to him. And again, like I said, October 7th, I believe, had a huge part in that. So let's watch this. We'll see.
You can tell people what we're going to be doing, and they're already accustomed to it. Maybe they'll be more open-minded to it. Maybe. Is it because maybe even on the other side, for me, that I think about Netanyahu and Israel? First of all, who has the best secret intelligence in the world? Mossad. You mean to tell me?
No.
You mean to tell me these guys have been that low-key underground for a year, built a city like the one in Israel, and they trained their guys to go in and how to break into homes and how to take people hostage, and you're telling me you didn't know? Seriously? It comes out, by the way, the story came out, it's like, well, we told them, we warned them that something was taking place. Another story came out about Egypt. Rob, if you tell me what page it's on.
Then they said they didn't. They're going back and forth.
Yeah, they're saying they didn't. You're like, so make up your mind. Did you know or did you not know? So what is really going on? So then I go layer deeper, and I'll turn it over to you, is, okay, did Israel almost, because I'm talking to this other guy, and he says, I said, you realize what happened in 2014? He says, yeah. I said, 2014 when they, the three girls were kidnapped, and then, whatever happened, raped, travesty,
Horrible.
and then Israel comes back and kills 2,000 people. He said, it should have been 20,000. It should have been 200,000. So I said, where are you going with this? He says, well, listen, here's what I'd like to see happen in Israel. What's that? Only Jews live in Israel. Nobody else. We don't need to coexist. It's just not going to work out. Is this a way for Netanyahu's legacy to be he eliminated Hamas? Is this his way for saying, now I got the card. I got the, get out of jail card for me to go straight up 100,000 on the blockade of Gaza Strip, 300,000 reservists you put up there. Now we're going to go groundwork. We're going all freaking out because the world gave us the permission to do so. Is that what it is? I don't know. I just keep continuing to have a lot of questions the more I think about it, because so these guys are coming up. So what, are we going to have another 9/11? And they're going to come and do what? They're going to go into your community. What are they going to target next? Where are they going to go next? What's going to happen next? Oh, it's not a big deal. It's never happen again. Well, that's what we thought was never going to happen. 9/11. Before 9/11 happened, nobody thought 9/11 was going to happen. Yep. So I just have way too many questions that makes me think about what the motives are. And if we go dark, I'll put all those things out there.
Yeah.
How did these guys not know this was taking place?
So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still had the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very, very hard to believe. You cannot go 10 feet.
What do you Netanyahu was watching this right here? What do you want to bet that Netanyahu saw this right here? He knew what was happening. He knew that Charlie Kirk was drastically changing his views and had drawn a line in the sand on what he would and would not support, going forward.
Without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that's an IDF soldier. Right, the whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel is on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's decided when I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is. Yeah. And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools and by reports 6 hours. Let's say it's 3 hours.
That's suspect. Go ahead, Rob. It's also not like a right-wing.
That is a legitimate non-conspiracy question, but at the end of the day, especially if the right people are asking that question, ones that have as much, as much pull over not only Americans but young Americans, that question could have a heavy price for asking it. I think.
Reporting. This is from the New York Times. The long wait for help as massacre unfolds in Israel. I can't think of a more liberal news outlet than the New York Times.
And by the way, I'm actually very pro-Israel. So let me be very, so I'm not exactly.
Like we all are.
No, I just want to make sure my position is clear here. But so Patrick, there are other explanations. It's possible that the Netanyahu government was double-crossed by bad agents. Okay? That's dark, but it's not as dark as what we're talking about. Okay? Another aspect is that Netanyahu might have traitors in his government, like legitimate traitors that have infiltrated. I was texting with some senior people in the IDF, and they said, Charlie, can't say too much, but let's just say the same problem you have with the left in America we have here in Israel. So there's something to think about. There's something to think about, right? Is that maybe there's some people within those intel agencies that aren't as sympathetic. Or maybe, Patrick, maybe they might have gotten a tip. They might have gotten whisper, but no one thought it would be 1,200 dead. That's a potential, right? Because here's the essence of it. The essence is this. This is the closest thing to the Holocaust that any of us have lived through. But the fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard right government has a mandate. I gotta be careful the way I say this. They're gonna try to ethnically cleanse Gaza. Yep. I mean, that's, and I don't.
Why does he have to be careful how he says that? Is it political consequences that he's worried about, or possibly something worse than political consequences? I think Charlie knew once he changed his direction. I think he knew what was coming. Maybe he hoped that it wasn't coming, but I think he knew what was going to happen eventually.
Use that term lightly, okay? They're talking about basically removing 2.5 million people from there, okay? And honestly, they have a mandate to go seek justice and revenge. They do. This idea that they need to have a truce or a peace treaty, that's morally crap after you see women and children be burned alive and dragged to the streets. But there are some serious questions here, Patrick. And let me tell you, my pattern recognition over the last 5 years has become pretty sharp. COVID, Maui fires, Epstein. When I see a story and it doesn't click, our guts are usually right.
Yeah, this one's very weird.
Can I comment on the, when you use the term ethnic cleansing, that will, make the.
And here we go. Adam's got to be an asshole.
Hairs on the back. No, I'm just saying that term. I actually did some research specifically on that because that is a very slippery slope.
This one guy right here single-handedly ruins this show. I used to watch it all the time, but I swear I got to where I cannot stand to hear this man talk.
And if you actually want to talk about what Jews and even Christians should be most fearful of, Muslims as well, is the concept of ethnic cleansing.
So I just want to be very sorry to interrupt. Sure. I'm saying that's what they're going to be accused of.
Correct.
But if there are some people in public life in Israel that
that's not technically what he said. He said they're going to try to ethnically cleanse them.
Patrick, what did your pilot guy say? I want only Jews in Israel, right? Okay, that is a form of ethnically cleansing because 20% of Israel is Arab.
Correct.
20%.
And people don't know that. And I've been to Israel several times. I was there a few months ago and I saw the protests.
Yes.
If you don't have to be expert at Israeli politics to understand the divisiveness of politics, especially in America. We understand like Republicans, Democrats, blacks, white, whatever it is. Similar in Israel, there's a liberal faction, mostly based in Tel Aviv, and more the conservative faction in Jerusalem and throughout the country. And obviously, the more orthodox you are, the more you're inclined to be more right-wing thinking. But I think civil war is a little premature, but there is major contention going on there.
The country was at a fissure.
And just to be clear, I feel like this conversation right here, in one way or the other, was the beginning of the end for him. He may have had questions. He may have, voiced those questions at other times. But to my knowledge, from what I can find, this is the first big, huge show that he went on where he had, a long form discussion and really, really plainly voiced his opinions and his questions. And those opinions and questions were definitely not pro Philadelphia. So, yeah, I feel like this right here was in a lot of ways the beginning.
Your point. Yeah, right? It was split.
No, just like there was calls for potential civil war. I sort of think that's a little aggressive.
But you would agree it was hot. The country was
no
hot.
doubt.
Yeah.
No, just like the BLM riots here.
Yeah, it was not a time for unity in Israel.
The thing that I think just to think about when you talk about, I'm not saying you're accusing anything, that you just use the term. So the concept of ethnic cleansing is the biggest fear of the Jewish people. Okay? It's the whole reason that Israel was founded, because of the ethnic cleansing that occurred throughout Europe for millennia, right? Obviously.
So let's do unto others before they get a chance to do unto me or do unto us.
Culminating with World War II. But there's no doubt that that Israel could wipe out Gaza at any given point. But they do not want to participate in ethnic cleansing. Now, they would love to annihilate the terrorists. But if you actually talk about what's going around the world today, and this is what...
No, they just don't have any good reason for it. As far as the rest of the world's concerned, I feel like if they think they had a get out of jail free card and that they could, they had some way of wiggling out of the political issues that came afterwards, I believe they would in a heartbeat. I believe they would flatten that place. Anybody that would send out, pamphlets and all the messages and all that saying, hey, get out of here, go to Rafah, we're going to bomb this place, go to Rafah. And then in a day or two, after everybody congregates in Rafah, guess where they start bombing? Yep, Rafah.
Israel needs to kind of take note of.
That's what I was talking about, Patrick. I'm sorry to interrupt.
This is protest.
In the summer, it is every day. There were people in the streets.
Yes, I saw that. July of 2023.
The country was separating.
I mean, this is such a hotbed issue right now. But if you talk about ethnic cleansing, look at what's going on in Azerbaijan and Armenia.
No,
that's something that
110,000 Armenian.
Yeah, nobody's talking about that.
Yeah.
Why do we even worry about that? That's not what this conversation is. That is one of the biggest things that drives me crazy about these conversations that most people have. This topic comes up. You ask about this particular situation, this particular thing. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? What about them? Don't worry about them. Right now, we're addressing you or this. And let's talk about this. But that conversation, it always goes to other places and other things. Well, what about?
Seen over the last couple of decades, what happened in Bosnia. They were Bosnian Christians were killing Muslims. We've seen what's going on in Myanmar. Nobody talks about that. Okay, Christians are actually. There's an article right here from the Cato Institute. Who are the most persecuted people in the world? Well, it's actually Christians. You've probably done your research on this.
I talk about it all the time.
You go to Afghanistan. You go to Iraq. You go to Iran. You go to China. You go to Nigeria. They're killing Christians. Here it is, right here from the Cato Institute.
That's right.
Okay, so the whole concept of ethnic cleansing, I think temperatures need to go down because it's not egalitarian. People are killing people for multiple reasons.
And here's Israel's difficulty, is that Hamas, they build their headquarters under hospitals.
Correct.
They use humans as human shields. Yeah. And so civilians are going to die, and that is a tragedy. And Hamas brought this upon themselves. My wish, my plead to Israel is be precise, be focused in your retaliation.
By the way, the Israelis do too. They have a lot of their military and intelligence facilities mixed right in along with residential buildings and hospitals and all that. So Hamas isn't the only one. Matter of fact, they probably learn from the best when it comes to that.
You have a moral right to go and seek the blood of the people that did this. Mm-hmm. What I think would be bad for Israel, and I have a heart for Israel. I can't tell you what it did. It made me a stronger Christian in a way I can't even tell you, right? Let's see where our Lord rose from the dead.
Not like 60, 80, 100,000 innocents in the process.
For Israel is that.
And Charlie realized that. I know he realized that. And yeah, a lot of other people are starting to realize that also.
They don't overreact. That and Patrick, you hear what I'm saying here, right?
That's my concern, because if they do, again, if they do overreact, I'm more coming from a place of thinking this was intentional. If they don't overreact, then this wasn't intentional. Meaning, if all of a sudden you see an all-out annihilation,
Intentional. They knew it was going to happen.
No, when you're asking about the stand down 6 hours and 3 hours, well, then why did you? What intel are you getting? So we're on the same page.
Fair enough.
All I'm saying
I just
is,
wanted to make sure I understood.
if there is a major attack, it was intentional. If there's a major attack, and by the way, the number in the last however many years, the biggest number they have is 2,000, right? The Palestinians that died. That's the biggest number they've had. And in Gaza, if you look at the Gaza Strip, if you can pull up the map so you can kind of show Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and where Hezbollah's coming from Lebanon. Yeah, but in West Bank, it's a different story, because in West Bank, at least 42% of Palestinians there support Hamas, but in Gaza, it's 58%.
And Hamas really isn't in those regions.
Yeah, it really is not in those regions. So this is Gaza Strip, all the way to the left.
Can I emphasize that?
Sure, go for
Look
it.
at the cameras, the radars. Patrick, not only did they go in, but hear me out here. Not only did they go into Israel, they got out of Israel with hostages.
Yeah, 100 hostages.
So you would think, let me just hear me out. There's a penetration of your border wall, okay? That you guard on a holy day, the 50-year anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. And you would think, hey, they're going to come back. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. Let's mobilize some forces. And it is not quite, but it is close to the North Korean demilitarizing.
What's weird about what you're saying that gets even more credibility is you're a pro-Israel guy.
No, that I want to be clear.
No, fully, I know that. So I want to make sure the audience knows this. So for you to question that and for me to question, I'm like sitting here saying, how did you not know this was taking place? But again, going back to it,
All right, so I'm going to have to go off camera for just a moment. I will be back. I'm going to leave this playing. So no worries. I'm going to play this, and I will be right back.
okay, so let's go to a different angle here. Okay, so many times when crisis happens, we sit down, oh my gosh, we immediately go to World War III. Like we have a yearning for,
Armageddon.
There's almost a little bit of a yearning people have for, oh my God, what would a civil war really look like, bro? That's like crazy. I get to take a month off from
so
work.
scary,
Like,
though.
you stand and play cards all day.
I have all these guns. I want to use them.
These are people that have never gone to a country.
Exactly.
Or you never experienced war.
No, it's the worst thing human beings.
Dude, trust me. Like I posted a picture the other day. My sister texted me, Paulette. I'm like, how I always talk about putting the tapes on the windows.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that picture. It's like that picture was Paulette's like, look at this picture. What do you see unique in this picture? I said, oh, it's pretty cool. It's you and I when we were kids. She says, no, look at the glass. I'm like, oh shit.
Just in case they get...
This is the tapes. This is me in Iran with my sister when we would get bombed. One day we got bombed 167 times. Okay, my dad would put tapes so the window wouldn't explode on our faces because that's our bedroom. Like I'm on this side.
Jeez.
is the and then the other side is our rooms. And he's like, hey, if something happens, so you look at these stories. You're like, yeah, I mean, the kids are going through it, but go a little bit deeper with this. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go next step here with this. Okay, what is truly the worst case that's going to happen? We have a fascination and an obsession with market crash, collapse, war, civil war. This is the last election. This is the most important election of all time. I'm telling you, or else we're going to lose America, right? Of course, all of these things is a way of controlling fear, urgency. I get it. There's a certain element of, motives behind it that's effective. But how ugly do you think this actually can get? Like the domino effect. If this happens, these guys react. And if these guys react, these guys have to react.
That meme where it like all starts with, a mean tweet and it ends in nuclear war.
Yep.
You ever see that meme?
Yeah.
Domino effect, yes.
You know which one I'm talking about. Sorry to interrupt.
So how ugly can this get?
Look here. So let me also make sure I criticize both sides. Okay. So I'm going to criticize the people that do the paragliding and it's sick. Lindsey Graham is an irresponsible lawmaker for what he's saying. Bombing Iranian oil depots, this thing could get wildly out of control very, very quickly. The last thing America needs is a kinetic war against Iran, an 87 million person country that has a pretty fierce fighting spirit, a country that's 5 times the size of Iraq, 5 times the size of Iraq. We're going to go start bombing oil depots? Yeah, that could get Russia further involved, China involved. Yeah, look, the quote-unquote Armageddon situation is that, for Israel, the Armageddon situation is that they overreact so much that they lose their Arab neutrality. Right now, they have neutrality with Egypt. If they overreact, they could lose that. They have warm conversations. I won't say a peace deal yet with Saudi Arabia. They could lose that. Jordan plays ball because America demands they play ball. They could lose that. Syria, Bashar al-Assad, he acts as if it doesn't exist, but that could change in a moment's notice, right? Lebanon via Hezbollah is already there. They could be all of a sudden dealing with a 15-country invasion of Israel.
Can they handle that?
They have in the past. I mean, the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War. The Yom Kippur War, for example, they were invaded from every direction. At the Balfour Declaration, when they became a country in 1948, every Arab country declared war on them. Yeah. And then they almost lost the country. And to their credit, they held it off and they earned the right to be Israel. But I don't know what that looks like. No one does. And you're talking about countries that have some form of nuclear weaponry as well. Saudi Arabia doesn't have a total nuclear developed bomb, but they have some sophistication, far more than Iran. But yeah, look, I mean, I'm not an alarmist, but if we take the path of Nikki Haley and Lindsey Graham, like we're dramatically increasing the chances of a world war.
Can we stay right there on the Iran situation? Obviously, this is very close to home.
Lunatic wants war.
It's a PBD. That picture, I think, says 1,000 words. The tape on the windows, you're used to this. When you've seen bombings like this, when you've seen death like this, you wish this upon nobody. But the biggest question is, like, we're so focused on what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, granted. Obviously, the big picture, I think we can all agree, is what's going on with China, right? That's the big picture here. But, in this region, the tip of the spear with all these issues is Iran. So as much as Lindsey Graham sounds
like a lunatic,
like a wild man, warmongering, wild man, John Bolton-esque type person.
Yeah, they're the same person.
He is at least bringing up the fact that Iran needs to be dealt with. At the heels of all this, what's going on, and you bring up like what,
So that's important.
The next 5 moves of Israel is they're at the final innings of this deal with Saudi Arabia. Obviously, Saudi Arabia and Iran are enemies, Shia, Sunni.
Irreconcilable.
Right. So what must be done with Iran at this point?
Well,
because to be clear, they're the ones that fund Hamas. They're the ones that fund Hezbollah. They're the greatest exporter of terrorism around the world.
True.
They're chanting
So
death to America.
Death to America after we get them $6 billion. What do we do there?
The first thing is we must remember that we, the American government, are the reason why Iran is radical. We did this. They had a democratically elected leader that we did not like. I remember, I believe his name was Mossadegh.
Mossad.
Yeah, right?
Mossadegh.
Yeah, Mossadegh, thank you. And we didn't like him because he wanted to nationalize the oil. Specifically, the Brits didn't like it.
50s.
What year was this, PBD? I got you. This is before the show.
Yes, he was very popular.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And look right there. Even in Wikipedia, 1953 Iranian coup d'etat aided by intelligence agencies of the UK and United States.
Weird.
Got it.
Okay? So then we put the Shah back in, if my memory serves me correctly, who was sick and unpopular, meaning he was actually suffering.
Physically sick.
And we paved the way for the most radical elements of Islam from a country that, Patrick, you know it better than I do. The Persian people are the most entrepreneurial. They're some of the smartest people that have really been living under radical Islamic captivity for many decades. Why am I bringing this up? Sometimes your intervention can make things far, far worse. Sometimes intervention is moral and necessary. Our intervention in World War II in Europe was moral and necessary. So what to do? Well, I think Joe Biden should definitely not give them $6 billion. I think that's a good start. I think that sanctions is probably appropriate. But I also think that we have to be really clear that Iran is an enemy of the United States, but it pales in comparison to the immediate and the pernicious and the existential threat that the Chinese Communist Party poses to America. And I don't want to see us get into the Lindsey Graham dream world that Iran is somehow murdering Americans. They are financing terror. They're chanting death to America. But China right now is actively creating fentanyl that comes into our country that kills over 100,000 people. Not everyone, but fentanyl, but drug overdoses.
Majority, yeah.
Yes, over a majority of the 100,000 is fentanyl. What I'm getting at is I, as a millennial turning 30, know nothing but Middle Eastern no-win war quagmires, right?
Yep.
And I am cynical. And I think it's my moral responsibility and my public role as a commentator to slow down the chatter anytime we're talking about accelerating us closer to another conflict in the Middle East. Because we did it in Iraq. I think it was a mistake. We spent trillions of dollars and we lost precious American lives, led to ISIS. And you want the thought crime? Honestly, Saddam Hussein kept a lot of the terrorists in check.
Yep, they were scared of him.
He was a bad guy, but he wasn't the worst guy. And I think the same thing in Afghanistan. So what do? I think first we have to calm down the neoconservatives that are bloodthirsty and want war more than they want what's best for America.
Yeah, you know what is this is actually. I think it's going to be filtered. By the way, I don't know if this video is recent or we shared it the other day, or it's right after they killed Qassam Soleimani. I don't know exactly the date of this video, so just kind of verify when this video was. What does it say right there? This video was from 3 years ago. Okay, yeah, this is when we killed Qassam Soleimani.
But the attitude hasn't changed.
No,
It's not their opinions have changed dramatically.
On the shot thing you talk about with Mossadegh was a guy that came in who was the modern day Bernie Sanders.
He wanted to nationalize everything.
He wanted to nationalize everything. He wanted to, nationalize everything, and then the shock comes in. The Shah comes back, modernizes the whole thing. Education improves. Women finally have no longer, age of marriage for girls are no longer 8 years old or 13 years old. He raised it to, I think, whatever it was, 15 years old. And then women can actually go become lawyers and go to school. Education for women changed. Then what happened in the Middle East when Iran was ran by him, Reza Pahlavi, the Shah, is conflict in the Middle East was less. Okay, because now it was Iran who had a good relationship with U.S. for the most part, except when there was Democratic presidents, there was issues, but for the most part, they had a good relationship with U.S. And he had the contract he wrote, if you can go to 1954 Iran oil deal, it was in 1954. The deal was coming up till 1979. That's what it is. So it's called the Consortium Agreement of 1954. This was a deal they did.
Yeah, British Petroleum.
Yeah,
right.
This was a deal they did. That was a 25-year deal. This is what's so interesting about it. Watch this. 1950 or so, the provided Western oil companies with 50% ownership of Iranian oil production after its ratification in 1954, expiring what year? 1979. So the PM, I think the leaders of UK, US, I want to say France and one other country met in South or Central America to talk about how to prevent this 25-year contract from coming up, because the Shah was going to go away from the 50% deal.
That's right.
And he was going to rule the world. He was going to become so powerful. 1979 is when it expires. Guess when the Shah expired? Right. 1979. Maybe a little bit of a strange timing on what they did with this year. And then comes Khomeini, comes Hezbollah, comes the 3,000 political prisoners, because Jimmy Carter's talking about human rights. They're freed. A lot of them ended up becoming the ISIS, the Hezbollahs, the two-day party, the communists who ended up doing 9/11. So, and Carter was pushing this with them. The similar thing that he did with Cuba as well. He was like, hey, you need to free. It's not fair for what you're doing with your people, human rights. He says, no problem. Here's 125,000 people I'm releasing from Cuba to U.S. And who did he release? Political.
All those guys.
I'm just a political refugee. I'm a political prisoner, right? Is what I am. And boom, unemployment in Miami goes up to 50%. But you're saying with the Iran situation, what's going to happen there? So let me bring it back to a different thing. If you got one last thought about this,
I don't want to just, the Iran thing is so fascinating to me because I think they're the tip of the spear of what's going on in the Middle East. And then who are they funded by? China. What was the amount of money that they gave them? $400 billion?
$450 million.
So here's my question to you.
$400 billion in 25 years.
Okay. Just to kind of emphasize this. If you're a consultant or the national security advisor to whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whoever it is, you, PBD, how do you deal with Iran? Do you pull out of the nuclear deal entirely like Trump did? Do you get back into the nuclear deal? Do you give them any money whatsoever? The $6 billion for the hostages? How do you deal with Iran?
What do you do?
Yeah, I think Trump had it right, which, remember, there was clamoring for a strike, and he resisted that. At the same time, he was tough and very firm, where he canceled the Iran deal, went after Soleimani, but you have to have your priorities. What is best for America, right? War with Iran is not what is best for America. There's some other facts about Iran that are important, though. I think the Iran situation solves itself over a period of time. I believe 50% of their population is under the age of 35. We can fact check it. They have one of the youngest populations on the planet, and we can fact check it. It might not be that extreme. But you have a very, very radical government. The people of Iran are incredibly talented. They're entrepreneurial. They're industrious. And I'm actually more bullish on the future of Iran if you can liberate them from the captivity that they're under.
You do that is my point.
Well,
we saw what happened last year with the girls.
That's one of the youngest populations.
We saw what happened when a girl took off her job. She was killed, beaten. The women have no rights there.
The answer is it shouldn't be a top priority of the American government because we have so many problems here to execute a CIA coup d'etat in another country. You have to put sanctions on. You have to put them in check. You have to try to, in my personal opinion, allow Israel to seek justice. At the same time, you cannot allow this to turn into a regional, broader war. You know why? Because the adult America is going to have to come clean it up. That's why. If we just kind of say, oh, it doesn't, this thing turns into a regional conflict, we're going to have more troops on the ground, and we're going to have to go clean up this mess, as Trump calls it, in the region of sand and death, while our own country is disintegrating and collapsing. But look, there's a lot of other technical things you could do to Iran, right? You can prevent them access to European markets, which Joe Biden hasn't done, right? They go and shop in Paris and London all the time. You cut that crap off, right? Just like lifestyle stuff that you could easily do. You cut off student visas, right, from certain Iranian expats. You can put extra sanctions on. There's a lot of other tools you can do, and the number one thing you can do is you drill baby drill here domestically, and you weaken Iran's energy hegemony. Basically, if you increase the oil supply, which Donald Trump had us energy independent and exporting more oil than we were importing, you significantly weaken Iran. And you weaken Russia too, if that actually you care about that, right? The more you explore for oil in the American homeland, the weaker these governments that are reliant on the petrodollar become.
What would you add to that, PVD?
I think he said everything and more than what I would have said. Look, here's interesting. I'll transition and kind of make sense to what you want to say. De Niro yesterday came out and ripped Donald Trump again.
Oh, God.
And he says Trump is evil. He wrote out a whole thing in a speech, want to be tough guy with no morals or ethics.
I'm back, by the way. Sorry about that.
Let me just read this to you, and I'll give you my thoughts on this. So De Niro, keep going a little lower. The entire speech is at the bottom. Go lower, 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 lower. You'll see it when it's there.
I'll tell you what, I'm not going to be able to stay on too much longer because my wife and kids are on the way here, and when they get here, I've got to get my two little ones so she can go somewhere else. So it just, family happens, and so I'm going to go ahead and try to burn quickly through a couple more of these clips, and then we might just have to take this up and keep going tomorrow. But I think this is definitely a conversation that needs to be had, and I think that, like I said, a lot of people avoid this, but yes, Charlie Kirk, no doubt, was changing his mind and his outlook, and that's all there is to it. And I think that it killed him. Oh, this is a good one. It's very, very short, but it is a good one.
I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue to ask the question. A 20-hour response in a country the size of New Jersey. That begs a big explanation. More importantly, America is significantly underwriting the Israeli government $4 billion a year. We as American taxpayers deserve answers to this. We deserve answers. Also, if we're going to get into a regional or world war based on an intel failure, so, we paid for this. What are we buying, right? I got smeared as a Jew hater, an anti-Semite, and conspiracy theorist because I said exactly what I just said. And I refuse to back down despite all the smears thrown at me. Because I learned during COVID. I learned when they told us that it came from a bat in the Himalayas. I learned when they told us the vaccine was safe and effective. I learned when they told us that ivermectin was horse paste, that you better keep asking questions because it's the only thing that keeps us free.
Amen, Charlie. Amen. All right, let's see what else I got hiding here.
Interesting. I'll transition and kind of make sense to what you want to say. De Niro yesterday came out and
Not what I was trying to do. All right, let's have a look see at this.
You and I are both support.
By the way, this is a clip with Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk. And it's actually not too terrible long before that day in September the 10th. If I remember correctly, this was in August. So This was his outlook, his mindset, his experiences just leading up to September the 10th. So I think this is very telling. Not only does this illustrate how his beliefs and outlook was changing, but it also shows how he was being treated, how he was being quote unquote emotionally blackmailed, how he said he refused to be emotionally blackmailed, and how they were attacking his character because he had questions about certain things. And just so happened, those questions are questions that most of your average Americans have. So it's not like he was just crazy and going places that should not be gone. Well, I guess he was going places that should not be gone, especially when you're in a position like he is. It is really, really dangerous for somebody in his position to get off the quote unquote plantation. Because what happens is you end up taking a lot of people with you, especially when you're that persuasive and that, when you've got that many youth that are looking up to you and learning from you. And, there was a true grassroots movement. Yes, we're finding out lots of terrible things about Turning Point. I think a lot of it has been at least exacerbated and everything since Charlie died. We're not even going there. So that's not what I mean. But when you have as much influence over the youth as what Charlie Kirk had, it is super dangerous for that guy to get off point if you're Philadelphia.
You and I are both supporters of Israel and have defended Israel since the beginning of this conflict and spoken out about the anti-Semitism that has erupted on these college campuses many, many times. And something's happening, though, with this whole debate that is really bothering me, and I wonder if you're feeling it too. So I genuinely believe you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody in the public eye who's been as outspoken a defender of not every move Israel's taken in the war, but of Israel's right to defend itself and of the just backward awfulness that we've been seeing on college campuses and the backlash against American Jews than yours truly. I mean, I have been at the pointy end of the spear on this, and
I completely agree with that.
And it was all heartfelt, and it remains heartfelt.
Yes.
However, my contention here is that some in the pro-Israel camp are so knee-jerk about calling you anti-Semitic or getting deeply offended if you say anything that doesn't align with their narrative, that it undermines their own cause. And I have to tell you, I find it very irritating because I do feel like some of us have earned the right to have some credibility on the subject of Israel and don't want to be called those names when we have some mild pushback on some of the overreaches, whether it's whether they're winning or losing the propaganda war right now. And my contention is they've begun to lose it. And I realize it's propaganda coming at us from Hamas, but their numbers have turned here in America. They've turned not so much with Republicans, a little bit with Republicans, but completely with the Democrat Party and with independents. They have shifted mightily from at least double digits highs to single digit lows now when it comes to approval. And also with respect to, you and I speculated about this at the Turning Point event, whether the possibility of Jeffrey Epstein possibly being a Mossad agent or asset or affiliated with, that's been turned around on me too, to you must be anti-Semitic. What the hell? That's such bullshit. The same people who say you can criticize Israel, that's fine. We won't call you anti-Semitic if you criticize Israel. Now, turn around immediately and say you're anti-Semitic for even raising that. I completely reject that. And I raise this as a push.
Sorry, guys, I'm going to finish up with this clip. I'm going to let this one play out. And when it goes, that's going to end the stream for tonight. We will pick right back up here tomorrow night and finish this up because I think this is important. And we got to finish that debate up.
Back against my friends on that particular strain of the aisle to watch it.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. That's the only way it's going to get out there. And hey, whoever has been on here watching the whole time, say hey in the chat. I've been watching you, sitting here watching the whole time. Say hey. And I appreciate you being here and hanging with. All right. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe, and we will finish this up tomorrow.
Because you don't want to alienate people who are openly your friends by going nuts in your crackdowns on mild pushback on anything related to Israel. Now you take it.
I'm so glad you brought this up, and I would second that. Megan, I think I have a bulletproof resume showing my defense of Israel, both on campus, on social media, to great, let's just say mockery and scorn at times, right? Because I believe it, right? I believe in the scriptural land rights given to Israel. I believe in fulfillment of prophecy. And again, I'm not a theologian, but I'm a Christian. My life was changed in Israel. The spiritual energy is so amazing there. I want them to win. I've said that repeatedly.
Same.
And however, Megan, you're hitting on something very potent and important. Now, let me first say, I don't want to judge an entire group because there's been many people in the pro-Israel world that have been very sweet, very kind, very nuanced, very Charlie, you're with us. You don't have to agree all the time. However, and I will say this, the behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. Not like we're going to be pro-Hamas, not like we're going to, but we're like, honestly, the way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat, literally the Jewish Sabbath. I visit Israel and fight for it. And there's another article out in the Times of Israel today. I could read it on air. I was just reading before I got on. Charlie, what are you doing? Like, what am I doing? I'm sorry. Like, let's just take a step back here. Like, I'm an American citizen. Yes, I want Israel to win. Yes, I'm a Christian. But like some of the mess, and you saw it, you've seen how I've been treated, Megan, by some, not all, by some.
No, it's very irritating. It's been so unfair. They were coming after you after Turning Point for, among other things, you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith isn't allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the 5th time. I love Israel. I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megan. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this. And I could go, you saw it, Megan, it was trending on Twitter, thousands of tweets and text messages. And if I were to be charitable and generous, I will say the people that are attacking me are in a hyper paranoid state because they're at war, and war tends to make things black and white, and you're a hammer looking for a nail. So I'm trying to be charitable, Megan. Literally, I'm trying to cut as much slack as I can, right? Like, okay, what would it be like if all of a sudden I'm starting to see a pattern of behavior similar to what my grandparents saw in 1930s Germany online? How would I behave? So that's like my charitable kind of overcompensation spirit. At the same time, I'm like, but it's not defensible to be dumb. Right?
Yeah.
So,
and it's offensive. It's offensive to those of us who have been out there defending them in many instances against critics on our own side. And now you have a couple of comments like, well, what about this? Well, has it gone on too long? Like, is it time to wrap it up? And the thing about Epstein is just so bizarre. I don't know who he was an agent for. It might have been Israel or an asset, or it might have been nobody, but we're allowed to speculate about that. It's like there's some rule. You can't go there when it comes to Israel.
Well, you and I believe that we're Americans and Americans first, period. End of story. We are citizens of this nation, okay?
That's
and
right.
Israel, we have funded, we have supported, and they're up against a sea of Islamic totalitarianism, and we should be cheering for them, right? Because they're up against barbarians and monsters, and we want them to win. However, here is Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk combined, probably 30 million social media followers, like pretty, right? And you and I have been holding this down. You probably get the negative, oh, you're just shilling for Israel. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do what's right regardless of the feedback, right? But then all of a sudden, like I host a person that I moderate the debate of, mind you, right? And I give equal time to Josh Hammer, equal time to a pro-Israel advocate. And my moral character is being put into question. And so I think it's a hyper paranoid, like we're just going to try to, we're going to just stamp out everything type of practice. But it goes to the point where if, for example, if I have less ability sometimes online to criticize the Israeli government about backlash than actual Israelis do. And that's really, really weird, isn't it, Megan? That's not right.
Wrong-headed. I'll tell you this for me. So I got some blowback after saying Mossad possibilities with Epstein, a comment behind which I stand. I mean, I realize, and I of course reported what Alan Dershowitz has said as his lawyer. He says, I think he would have told me. He didn't say he had any of those connections. I hear all that. That doesn't mean it's not true. I think all these things should be explored. It's one of the many things that should be explored around Epstein. But saying that, and also saying he might be a U.S. asset, et cetera, doesn't make you anti-Semitic. That's fucking crazy. And then we get to last week, I go on Piers Morgan, right? So I go on Piers Morgan last week, and I don't talk about Israel a lot in this show. I just like during the day of a conflict like this is not my thing. It's not what we do here at the Megyn Kelly Show. We haven't done it for Ukraine. We haven't done it for Israel. We haven't done it for a lot of conflicts, but we'll talk about it when big things happen. So Piers talks about it a lot. Piers asked me, it was a very interesting kind of culture study. So he asked me about the photos of the starving children out of Gaza. And I said a couple of things, both of which got a fair amount of pickup. All right. So first, this is what I said about the photos. Listen to Top 10. Well, I'm always reluctant to put too much stock in the images coming out of Gaza, that phrase, because they're manipulated and they're masters of propaganda and they're fine having their own children starve just as long as they can put them on camera and show them off to the world. That's Hamas. And frankly, it's a lot of Palestinians. So I'm very skeptical of taking those images at face value and saying it's Israel's fault. Okay, so that clip gets circulated
I'm with you on that.
a million times by my Israeli friends and my Jewish friends online. Like, go Megyn, yeah, okay, great, cool. Yeah, she's right on. Look at her, speak truth to Piers. And then Piers released as a separate clip my follow-up to that comment. Okay, and here's that.
You're not allowed any nuance, Megan. It's only tribalism.
No, that's right. So here's Slide 11. Israel, whether it realizes it or not, has made itself the villain of the world in letting this thing go on so long. They have lost support amongst their dearest friends. And even the entire Democrat Party here in the United States has turned against them, and they're losing Republicans by the day here in America, which is their most important ally. So whether the fight continues to be just or not is almost irrelevant. As Trump said when he was running this time last year, not yet elected, time to wrap it up. And that's how I feel too. And I've given Israel a long berth. I fully understand, as an American who was attacked on 9/11, my country was that, when you attack the United States and you kill thousands of our citizens, and Israel was in this position on 10/7, it's fine to respond, and it doesn't have to be proportionate. Whoever said it has to be proportionate. But what Israel's doing now is losing its standing with the rest of the world. It's starting to lose too, even with its closest friends, its moral reputation, its moral high ground. And as Trump said a year ago, time to wrap it up. Cue
Well said.
the 25 text messages from people I know, like friends who are pro-Israel, like, I'm so sad that you've left us. I'm so sad let's debate it. Many Jewish advocates saying, let me come on your show and we'll debate. There's nothing to debate. I'm on Israel's side. Just stop. Me observing
totally agree.
that you're losing the propaganda war and that this has gone on for about 2 years now. And look, I pulled the stats. Support for Israel's military action in Gaza by Party ID. GOP in June of 2024, 76%. Now 71, so they lost 5%. Dems in October of 2023, 36%. Now it's at 8. Independents, October 2023, it was 47%. Now it's 25%. You go under 35, you have almost zero support across the United States, your closest ally. I see what's happening, and it's my job to comment honestly on it. But I am sick of being lectured on, like, you have to see it exactly as we see it and support everything, or you're against us.
So this is so important, Megan. And again, I don't want you cannot say everyone in the pro-Israel, and I don't say it, acts that way. But I got text about you, Megan, saying, why is Megan like doing the bidding of Hamas? I was like, what are you talking about? Megan's the best. Like, what? She's amazing. And I said, why are you texting me about Megan? And at that point, and so this is what they don't understand. You and I, Megan, and Tucker is in the same category, and they've tried to go after Tucker. Yeah. Is that and the more you attack our moral character, the more we're going to double down in a direction, because 100%. Screw you, I don't do it that way, okay? Right. Like, tell me I'm wrong. Cool. Tell me if I got my facts wrong. By the way, on the Epstein thing, Naftali Bennett says he was an Epstein agent. We have to be pursuers of truth. They've denied it. Fine. Let's keep digging. Okay, fine. But the thing that I think is being lost is, like, on some part of the population, you can scold them into silence, right? But if I have any deviation of a purity test, any deviation whatsoever, such as hosting a focus group, right, Megan, with a bunch of our students that went viral, having Dave Smith or Tucker at my event, it is all of a sudden, oh, Charlie is he's no longer with us and all that. So wait a second, what do you mean, what does with us mean exactly, right? I'm an American, okay? Like, I represent this country, and I don't even understand that paradigm. But Megan, I think you would agree with this. I want to make sure we really zero in on this. Personality types like you, myself, and Tucker, the more that you guys privately and publicly call our character into question, which is not isolated, right? Megan, it would be one thing if it was one text or two texts, dozens of texts. Yes. Then we start to say, hold the boat here. And to be fair, some of my really good Jewish friends are like, that's not all of us, it's all, but these are leaders too, though, right? These are stakeholders, right? And so, look, I'm afraid, because again, I want civilization to win. I want the West to win. I don't want the Islamo-fascist barbarians to storm the gates of Jerusalem. I want the holy sites protected. I believe in the Holy Land. I love that Jesus walked on water there and rose from the dead and preached in the Mount of Beatitudes. Like, I feel the connection to Israel. But at the same time, simultaneously, when the hostile reaction is that now Megan and Charlie are enemies, right? Boy, I'll tell you, like, you're not gonna, I wouldn't say lose, but you will weaken and just basically deflate two of your strongest advocates if that continues. Right. And to me, I laugh because it's like, I've been bullied by the best of them, the best. And it didn't work. And it's not going to work with them. And the more you try to tell me I can't criticize Israel, the more likely I am to do it, to focus on exactly what you're doing, right? Like, what are you doing that you're so defensive? You don't own me. I don't take $1 of money from any Jewish affiliated group. That's never been what my show's model. I take, Cozy Earth is my sponsor. People like Genucell. Those are the people I take. And I probably would feel reluctant to criticize Genucell, which is a great product, so I probably wouldn't do it anyway. My point is simply, I have my honest opinions, which is why I have credibility for the 2 years I've been defending them, right? And I still have that credibility, and I don't need lectures from my friends who are more pro-Israel than I am, or who are just American Jewish people who are concerned about what's happening. I don't need lectures on my coverage, okay? I'll call it like I see it. And you have no right to come on this show and demand a debate with me because I've said something you disagree with. It's my show, and I'll decide the coverage we do here. Since President Trump was sworn in, his administration has made enormous progress at a breakneck pace. But don't forget, while they are moving mountains for the good of the nation, you've got your personal savings to worry about. And one of the best ways to look after your savings is through diversification, particularly with gold, like from Birch Gold Group. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 40%. And Birch was an advertiser on this show 12 months ago. If you had purchased then, you'd be 40% richer today. Now's the time. Central banks continue to bolster demand for gold by burying in record.
Okay, that's it. All right, guys, I'm sorry. I got to go. I've got to go get my babies. I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 5-month-old, and Mama's got to go, so I got to grab them. So we will definitely finish this up tomorrow. It's been fun. We definitely got to finish up that debate, and I've got some other clips I want to go over and other stuff we need to talk about. So again, I'm going to jump off here. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not. Turn on the notifications. please like the video and share. I'm super small channel for now. Hope it blows up, but the only way to get this pushed out right now is if people hit that like button, subscribe, and share. Once we get to a point, then YouTube will start helping a little bit. But as of right now, it's on all y'all. So, all right, I'm gonna get out of here. I really appreciate it again, and y'all have a good one. I will see y'all tomorrow.